start with showing you one document where we will discuss the various microwave integrated circuit lines from the construction point of view and some introduction. Then I'll go back to another document where we will have more details on analysis and design. Microwave integrated circuit, typically abbreviated as MIC. These kind of transmission lines are basically an attempt to miniaturize everything at microwave frequencies. And the other advantage that comes out automatically is that if you produce circuits with MIC lines in large numbers using IC fabrication techniques, the cost goes down. Reliability also goes up. Lightweight components are the result. In today's world, miniaturization and lightweight components are the buzzwords. So MICs are an attempt in that direction. Don't worry about fabrication techniques too much. There are a lot of them, and for MICs we use a technique called photolithography, where we remove unnecessary copper from a dielectric material by using a light beam through a so-called mask, which stops light going out on that area where you want the metal, and rest of the metal is etched out. But anyway, that is not the concern in this course, at least. Fabrication techniques are another story. But what happens is, as I was telling you last time, conceptually speaking, we came up with one MIC transmission line called strip line. I'll show you the cross section. It is at the end of this document. Yeah. XY plane is where the cross section is. Z direction is where the direction of propagation is. We have got two dielectrics. They can be of different thicknesses also, but generally we try to make them of the same thickness. I'm also assuming that they have the same dielectric constant. Nobody stops you from experimenting otherwise. In the middle of these two dielectrics, we sandwich a conducting strip of width W. The thickness of metal is very small. It is in microns. The width of the strip and the thickness of the substrates, etc., are of the order of, let's say, a fraction of a millimeter and so on. They are very miniaturized constructions. I was telling you last time that if you allow the outer conductor in a coaxial line to have infinite radius and then replace the inner conductor with a conductor of rectangular cross section, then you get strip line. This line supports a TEM mode, transverse electromagnetic mode of propagation. That means no EZ and no HZ, only EX, EY, HX, and HY do exist. Okay. We'll be going more into the analysis in a different document. So that is what is written here in this document. Now, one problem with the strip line is that you have a top dielectric which stops you from accessing the strip. See, basically these lines are used to design a lot of circuits, filters, attenuators, amplifiers, and many other things, mixers, oscillators, and so on. You do a lot of things. You even use semiconductor devices by breaking the line, putting a diode there or a transistor there. It's a very complicated topic. The course on microwave engineering will be more deeply taking you into all that. But important thing is that there are times when you may want to make modifications to what you have done. But unfortunately, you have put a dielectric material on top as well. So it's a lot of work to remove that dielectric, do the modifications, and put the dielectric back. So from practical point of view, strip line turns out to be quite cumbersome, although theory is quite good for it. Okay. So what logically was thought after coming up with the strip line was that why don't we remove the top dielectric completely, even if it means analytical challenges. If you remove the top dielectric, what you get is what we call micro strip line. This is the most popular MIC line nowadays. Top dielectric is gone. You are able to see the top strip all the time. Whatever you are doing there, you can experiment with it in the lab. Okay. The downside is that this structure is not going to support a TEM mode anymore, because in the top half you have got air, in the bottom half you have a dielectric other than air, most of the time at least. And by the way, in strip line, there were two ground planes, one metallization at the bottom of the lower substrate, the other one at the top of the upper substrate. Now the top ground plane is gone completely. In another document, I'll show you the field distributions for both the cases, but right now just take it from me that because of the mixture of air and dielectric in the cross section, this line is not going to support a perfect TEM. However, good news is that if your frequency of operation is not beyond say 2 or 3 gigahertz, this line still supports an almost TEM mode. We call it quasi TEM mode. So theory is not that difficult, even in a microstrip. Okay. We'll go into maths in a different document. Microstrip. I want you to read this little bit. If the top dielectric is removed in figure 1, which was strip line, the resulting structure is called a microstrip, as I showed in figure 2. The mode of propagation in a microstrip is not a perfect TEM mode, but at least for lower frequencies, up to 2 or 3 gigahertz for sure, the mode can be considered to be an almost TEM or quasi-TEM. Okay. Besides these two lines, there are many more, although we will not go into detailed analysis of any of them, but I want you to be aware of the names. Strip line, microstrip, these two for sure. Besides that, the third one, which is also quite popular nowadays, is called a slot line. Here you have got two ground planes on the top and no ground plane at the bottom. And in between the ground planes, you have got lack of metal. So a slot is created. This line does not support TEM mode for sure at all. But analysis has been done and numerical techniques are there to handle calculations. This line is also becoming quite popular nowadays. It is kind of complementary to microstrip. In microstrip, wherever you had metal, in slot line, you have no metal there. This is the third one. The fourth one is actually two slots. It is called coplanar waveguide. This is also becoming very popular nowadays. It doesn't support TEM mode again. And the last one is coplanar strips. Basically, these ground planes on the left side and right side are made of finite dimensions. So at least be aware of the 5 different names of MIC transmission lines. We will be talking only about strip line and microstrip. Okay. In some other course, maybe you will get exposure to other kind of lines. Now let me get back to the document which I was showing you last time. Strip line, as I have said again and again, is a conceptual evolution from coaxial line. I showed you all this last time. Okay. By the way, the one page is repeated in this document, so ignore it. You are aware of all this. One important thing you have to remember is that if the material, the dielectric material between the two conductors, whether it is a coaxial line or microstrip or strip line, in all such cases, important thing is that if the material is lossless, the dielectric constant will be a real number. If the material is lossy, dielectric constant will have a complex value. The rest of the things here are well known to you. Once you get the document, make sure you understand all this. Values of epsilon naught, etc., etc. You know all this, right? Important thing is, in general, the permittivity can be written as having a real part epsilon prime and an imaginary part minus j epsilon double prime. Minus is there for a good reason, okay? It conforms to reality. The ratio of epsilon double prime and epsilon prime is known as what vendors call loss tangent. First of all, if I have equation 5 here, I divide both sides by epsilon naught, I get equation 6, right? And then I define epsilon divided by epsilon naught as epsilon r, unitless number, dielectric constant, complex. And on the right hand side, epsilon prime divided by epsilon naught as epsilon r prime, real part of epsilon r, minus j times. I define epsilon double prime divided by epsilon naught as epsilon r double prime, which is, these values are given to you by the vendor who supplies you the material. Now, vendor, rather than telling you real and imaginary parts, he generally tells you something called tan delta. Tan delta is nothing but what I'm showing here in this right angle triangle. Epsilon r double prime is plotted on the y-axis, and epsilon r prime is plotted on the x-axis. And the right angle triangle that comes out is known as loss triangle of the material. The angle delta is obviously tan inverse epsilon r double prime divided by epsilon r prime. For low loss material, delta will be very small, hardly 1 degree or even less. For high loss materials, of course, it can be as high as, who knows, 35 degree, 40 degree, etc. So tan delta is what is specified in the data sheet for materials. Even for magnetic materials, similar story applies, but right now I am concentrating only on dielectric material. Instead of telling you the actual values of epsilon r prime and epsilon r double prime, vendor will tell you actual value of epsilon r prime and tan delta. So you'll have to multiply epsilon r prime and tan delta to get epsilon r double prime. Okay, this is the background. Now let's get back to this strip line. I've showed you that conceptually we get to this from coaxial line, and then we allow the inner conductor to have a rectangular cross section to come to strip line. A lot of research has been done on strip line in terms of calculating its characteristic impedance, phase velocity, etc., etc. And we will be looking at the outcome rather than doing the derivations, because coaxial line theory is known and from there generalizations have been made. So if c denotes the speed of light in air or free space, then the phase velocity inside the strip line is c divided by square root of epsilon r. And phase constant is 2 pi by lambda, 2 pi divided by lambda. Lambda is 2 pi divided by beta, obviously. And lambda is also Vp divided by beta. You can see these equations are very similar to what we did for two-wire line. Only thing is, effect of epsilon r has to be brought into the game. Okay. The wavelength of the signal traveling in the strip line is lambda equal to lambda naught divided by square root of epsilon naught. Lambda naught is c divided by f, simple. Characteristic impedance formula has been derived after spending a lot of research effort. And this is the approximate formula that is recommended. Nobody can remember these formulas. I am aware of that. Don't bother remembering. These formulas will be available to you. Important thing is to apply them correctly. First of all, in this formula, the effect of metal thickness has been ignored. Fair enough, nothing wrong with it. 30 pi divided by square root of epsilon r and the entire thing multiplied by 1 divided by W effective divided by 2h plus 0.441. This formula was obtained by Professor Harold Wheeler in the US long time ago after doing a lot of electrostatics on strip line. W effective is an effective width for analytical purposes, which is equal to the actual width if W by 2h ratio is greater than 0.35. These are empirical formulas. He found that if W by h is more than 0.35, there's no point having effective width different from the actual width. That means for wider strips, W by h, by the way, is known as the aspect ratio, ASPET, aspect ratio of the strip line. The higher it is, the wider the strip is compared to h. So for wider strips, W effective is same as W. But for narrower strips, he recommended after a lot of research that W effective should be calculated by using equation 22. Some correction is necessary if you want to use equation for Z0 meaningfully. So depending on whether your W is narrow or wide, you'll have to calculate W effective first and then apply equation 20 to calculate Z0. Attenuation constant, this formula alpha equal to alpha C plus alpha D is based on realities. Alpha C is the attenuation due to conductor loss because of finite conductivity in the metal of the strip. Alpha D is the loss due to the fact that dielectric is lossy. And alpha is the total alpha. These are all in Napier per meter. Formulas for alpha C are available if you are interested. Based on this RS here is what we saw in two-wire line also. Same RS applies here. But what I'll do is, in our case, I'm going to ignore losses throughout. Although I'm telling you that formulas are around to calculate alpha values. For all calculations, I will avoid losses. Let's assume that it's a lossless line. That simplifies our calculations quite a bit. Okay. But be aware that formulas are around for calculating alpha. Very complicated formulas. Nobody can remember them. We generally write a MATLAB program to use them so that we don't have to carry out calculation every time. A and B are two local parameters that are needed for calculating alpha C, depending on whether square root of epsilon r Z0 is greater than 120 ohm or less than 120 ohm, different formulas apply. A lot of theory is there behind all this. The RS value is the same as we saw in two-wire line that is being used in both the formulas here for alpha C. Alpha D formula is simpler. Dielectric loss can be given by the simple equation, beta tan delta by 2. It is an approximate equation. Now, one thing you have to notice that in any transmission line, there are two things that you are expected to do. One is design. That means, like in this particular case, you will be given epsilon r and h, and you will be told to design, let's say, a strip line with 50 ohm characteristic impedance. That means how much W would be required. If you are told H and epsilon R, how much W would be necessary to make the line characteristic impedance equal to, let's say, 50 ohm. That is called design. Other approach is that you are given W, H and epsilon R and you figure out Z naught. That is called analysis. Given a situation, try to figure out its performance. That is analysis. You create something out of nowhere. That is called design. That is a general principle in engineering. Designing out means out of nothing, you are designing something. Analysis means you are given something, you are trying to figure out how it will behave. And the analysis formulas are already here. You are given WH and epsilon R, and we'll solve problems where it will be more clear how to apply these formulas. Synthesis or design are the words used when you do the opposite. And for that, the equations are given here. Just wait 1 minute. Yeah. Synthesis. That means you want to figure out W value for a given Z naught. And epsilon R and H are given to you. The formulas to use are two different formulas depending on whether W by 2H, depending on whether square root of epsilon R Z naught is less than 120 ohm or it is more than 120 ohm, different formulas will apply. This is what Harold Wheeler showed. X is a local parameter which is given by 30 pi divided by square root of epsilon R Z naught and the entire thing minus 0.441. These are formulas based on theory as well as some practical corrections when measurements were done in the lab. So to correct for disparity between theory and experiments, empirical constants were brought in to make these equations as accurate as possible. Now, dielectric materials that we use, there's a large variety. I have given you 5 different names. Air, of course, is a possibility always, although it is mechanically difficult. How will you hang a strip in air? So that challenge remains. But if you can do it, then air is a good dielectric material. Another material which is very commonly used is FR4. We have it in the lab. It is actually fire retardant material. You don't have to worry about what is inside, but important thing is that its epsilon R is around 4.37. Loss tangent is also there, but we would ignore it for now. Then there are less lossy materials. These are artificial materials produced by one company in the US. There are other companies also, but I'm quoting one company as an example. Rogers Corporation, they have their headquarters in Bangalore also. They sell these materials for microwave design work. These are very low loss materials. RT5080 has epsilon R equal to 2.2. Nominal values. These values change with frequency and temperature, but nominal values are these. RT6010 is another one which has epsilon R equal to 6 and so on. So air, FR4, RT materials, and the fourth one is the alumina, Al2O3. Al2O3, this is also popularly used, but it is not very flexible. It is very hard substrate. The material is called substrate because on the material you deposit things, you deposit your circuit. So substrate is the word which is used for these materials. Alumina has dielectric constant even higher than that for Rogers materials. And the last one is gallium arsenide, which has dielectric constant even higher. And there are more materials nowadays. Research is bringing up new and new materials every year. The thickness that you get in the market for these materials can vary anywhere from 5 mil to 120 mil. Now you will be asking what's mil? Mil is a unit used in industry. It is 1 inch divided by 1000. That means it is equal to 0.0254 millimeter. This is commonly used in workshop also when we want to make components. Even dielectric materials are specified saying this is 5 mil thick, this is 10 mil thick, this is 10, 20 mil thick, and so on. So don't worry, mil is simply 1 inch divided by 1000. Substrates normally are available in the thickness range of 5 mil to 120 mil. Strip width that you get for practical purposes is also somewhere between 5 mil to 150 mil. Below 5 mil, it is very difficult to fabricate anyway, accurately. And 150 mil also is too wide. After that, it is very difficult for IC technology to make the strip accurately. Metal thickness uses electrodeposition technique. We use electrodeposition technique to deposit the metal. The thickness that we normally are happy with lies in the range of 4 micron to 16 micron. It's not 1.6, it is 16, 1.6. Okay, now dielectric. I showed you that the construction of a strip line looks like this in the cross section. In practice, what we do is we take two different dielectric substrates with copper on one side, and on the other side of one of them, you deposit the strip. And then you bring the other one, which has no strip on it, on top of it, and either use glue or screws to tie them down together. This is how we do it normally. Again, you don't have to worry about it too much in this course, but I thought it's nice to know all this. Now, numerical problems. An air-filled strip line, hypothetical case, air-filled strip line is not that easy to make, but suppose it is possible. With strip width W equal to 50 mil is built using the ground plane separation 2H equal to 40 mil. Calculate the following. It is analysis problem. You are given the line, you are supposed to figure out the performance. Calculate the following. Characteristic impedance, phase velocity, phase constant, attenuation constant, and phase shift introduced by 1 meter long such line. Assume that the frequency of operation is 1 gigahertz. Practical problems. Industry wants these kind of things to be solved every day. Okay. Now 2H is given. So H will be 20 mil and W is 50 mil. So the aspect ratio W divided by H will be 50 divided by 20, which is 2.5. That's one thing. I've got the formulas reproduced again. Rather than going back in my notes, I have got these formulas again. W by H is 2.5. Now there were two different formulas depending on W by 2H value. In this case, W by 2H is definitely greater than 0.35. So W effective, if you go back to the previous formulas that I showed you, you simply write W here. Okay. The formula that, okay, let me go back just to clarify the whole thing once again. If W effective by 2H is greater than 0.35, this is the formula we are supposed to use. Okay. So I'm using that now. As a designer or as an analyzer, you have to pick the correct formula. So the correct formula is right here. I guess I should have written W effective, but I wrote WE here in this case. That's a mistake. Anyway, doesn't change the result. So what I do is I put WE H W So W by 2H becomes 2.5 divided by 2, which is 1.25. For air, epsilon R is 1, and rest of the formula applies. I get Z naught equal to 55.73 ohm. You can check the numbers later. Part A is simple. This is the 55 ohm line, 56 ohm line almost. Phase velocity, the formula is simple enough. C divided by square root of epsilon R, and epsilon R happens to be 1 for air filled case. So phase velocity in this case will be same as that of speed of light in air. Simple calculations, just that you need to be able to do them comfortably. Phase constant, we know that Vp is supposed to be omega by beta. So beta will be omega divided by Vp. And frequency is given as 1 gigahertz. So omega can be calculated from there. Beta turns out to be almost 20.944 radian per meter. In degrees, it turns out to be 1200 degrees per meter. Alpha is 0. I am assuming lossless line. Okay. So air anyway is very lossless. It's not a big issue. So alpha is 0. Now the total phase shift introduced by 1 meter long line will be beta multiplied by the length of the line. Length of the line is also 1 meter, right? Yeah, 1 meter long line. So beta value 1200 degrees multiplied by 1 meter. So theta, the total phase shift this line will introduce in a 1 gigahertz signal is 1200 degrees. Simple enough. Mathematically, this exercise is trivial. I know. Only thing is we are making calculations, but this is what you do in industry all the time. Quick calculations. Normally, we write programs to do these calculations so that we don't have to repeat things again and again using calculator. MATLAB programs are very commonly done. Online tools are also available to carry out these calculations. Problem 2 says, problem 2. Repeat problem 1, assuming FR for substrate. Ignore losses. Now, epsilon R is not 1. It is 4.37. But the fact that W by H is still greater than 0.35 remains. So the formula to use is the same that we were using in problem 1. But now epsilon R will be different than 1. So I repeat the exercise. Now the characteristic impedance has gone down to 26.66 ohm. These are real numbers. These are real life numbers. Okay. Calculations are telling you something about real life. 55.73 if you had air medium, and it goes down to 26.66 ohm if you put a dielectric material with 4.37 dielectric constant in the same construction. Because capacitance has gone up. So 1 upon capacitance is the impedance, is indirectly related to impedance. Z naught goes down if epsilon R goes up. That is the finding we are seeing here. Okay. Now other things, Vp will also change. It will go down now. It will become C divided by square root of 4.37. So it goes to a value below the speed of light. The wave in a dielectric field strip line will travel slower than in an air filled line. The actual number you can verify. Beta, let's see whether it goes up or comes down. Omega by Vp, if you do, you will find beta is higher now because of the dielectric. Dielectric introduces more phase shift per unit length compared to air. Instead of 1200 degrees that we got in the previous case, now we are getting more than 2500 degrees per meter. This number will go further if you increase epsilon R. Okay. Of course, loss edge we are going to ignore, so don't worry about it. Theta will be same as beta, so 2508.55 degrees in this case. Problem 3, using two 10 mil thick, now Rogers material having epsilon r equal to 2.2, and it's a design problem now. You are supposed to calculate the width required for obtaining a 50 ohm line using two RT5880 substrates with 10 mil thickness each. Ignore the losses. So now you will use design formulas. Formula sheet will be with you in the exam. We'll have to figure out a way of how to get it to you, but you have to use the correct formulas depending on what is being asked. Okay, let me show you the formulas to use. Now you are supposed to calculate W. So these are the formulas. For analysis, these were the formulas, right? So these are the formulas which I am repeating in my solution to the problem. Now one problem may be there. Let's see. Let me double check first. Yeah, there are two different formulas for W by H ratio. So you first figure out the value of square root of epsilon r multiplied by Z naught, so that you know which formula to use. Epsilon r is given as 2.2, take square root of that and multiplied by Z naught required, which is 50 ohm. You get 74.16. So the formula to use will be the top one, because square root of epsilon r multiplied by Z naught is less than 120 ohm. So you pick the formula W by H equal to 2x. This is it. Choose the correct formula always based on your calculations. The correct formula in this case is W equal to 2hx. And x has to be calculated. This is the formula for x. No need to memorize. These will be available to you somehow. So we calculate x based on what Z naught is given, what epsilon r is given. And I hope there is no mistake in my calculation. I got x equal to 0.83 approximately. I plug it back into W equal to 2hx, where h is 10 mil. I get W required. 2 into 10 into 0.83. W required is 16.6 mil. Now, if your calculations are correct, analysis equations should give you Z naught equal to almost 50 ohm. That is a double check on the calculation. I have figured out that I need W equal to 16.6 mil. But will it really give me Z naught equal to 50 ohm approximately? So let me double check my results by using the formula for Z naught in the analysis equations. In fact, I had made a mistake here. I'm glad that I double checked and I caught my mistake in calculations. If you put 16.6 in the analytical equations and do the calculation, you get almost 50 ohm. So your synthesis equations have given you correct W. All these calculations can be verified using online tools as well, but in the exam, you will not have access to that. So if you are asked to design a strip line, you figure out W required, but if you have time, double check with analytical equations also. One sheet of formulas is there, which has both analysis and design equations. You should know which one to pick. Okay. Now, a similar story applies to the second line also, which we are going to begin. We will not be able to complete today. And let me at least give you the physics part of it first. Microstrip is a strip line minus the top dielectric. As simple as that. I told you this. This is the practical problem, which was solved by removing the top dielectric. Now, schematically, this is the diagram which I showed you in the other document also. These are the various parameters. The bottom metal is known as ground plane. We normally ground it to the ground of the source which is feeding the line. The top is generally air. Substrate thickness is the word for H. Some people call it substrate height, which is also fine. W is known as strip width. Small t is metal thickness. It is very small in microns actually. Materials that we were using for strip line are equally applicable here also. FR4, Rogers materials, alumina, gallium arsenide, all those are used for microstrip also. In fact, they are used for all MICs. Now, one problem here is that you cannot use square root of epsilon r like we were using in strip line, because now the cross section has a mixture of air and dielectric. Lot of analysis has been done in this case, and what they came out with was an approximate hypothetical concept called effective dielectric constant, epsilon r effective, which captures the reality that cross section is not uniform. It is partially air and partially dielectric other than air. They defined, a lot of researchers worked on it. First of all, there is a bit of information here. This line doesn't support TEM mode. I told you that already. Cross section is a mixture of dielectric material and air. So we define an effective dielectric constant, epsilon r effective. And an approximate formula for that has been derived by researchers. And this is the formula. It's approximate. Epsilon r plus 1 divided by 2 is the first term on the right hand side, and second term has two factors, epsilon r minus 1 divided by 2 multiplied by 1 divided by 12, 1 divided by square root of 1 plus 12 h by w. Lot of electrostatics is behind this formula, and some empirical corrections have been made as well. One very important thing to notice is that the value of epsilon r effective can never exceed epsilon r, and it can never go below 1, because in the cross section you have got air and dielectric combined. So the minimum possible value when epsilon r is 1 will be 1 for epsilon r effective as well, and the maximum possible value for epsilon r will be, maximum possible value for epsilon r effective will be epsilon r. You can see that in this formula. Suppose I put epsilon r equal to 1 on the right hand side of equation 1. That means even in the bottom half I have got air. Then it's a uniform cross section. So if you put epsilon r equal to 1, you simply get epsilon r effective equal to epsilon r as expected, because it is air throughout in that case. Suppose I make the width of the strip very large, then it will basically shield the dielectric material completely. Air will not matter. It will become like a parallel plate capacitor. So if W goes to infinity, you see that epsilon r effective starts approaching epsilon r. Those physical realities are captured by this beautiful formula. However, for most practical applications, epsilon r effective will be neither 1 nor epsilon r. It would be somewhere in the middle of the two. So when you do calculations, make sure that the value for epsilon r effective that you are getting is not less than 1 and it's not more than epsilon r. That's a practical check on your calculations. Once effective dielectric constant has been defined, we'll go to the mathematics later. Yeah, other thing I wanted to show you before I close for today is what happens to electric field in strip line and in microstrip. It's a conceptual thing, but good to know. In a strip line, I've got zero potential on top and zero at the bottom. I'm grounding these two planes, these two metallic planes. So the strip will simply run electric field lines vertical to the two ground planes, and there will be lines at an angle also. When the strip has ended, the lines will curve around and would still hit the metal at 90 degrees, because on a metal it will be shown later on a metal, the tangential component of electric field has to be 0. This is a given. So all the electric field lines hitting metal will have to be at 90° when they hit. That is why I'm showing field distribution in this manner. Now, in case of a microstrip, the top dielectric is gone, so things become even more interesting. Now, part of the field actually goes through air and comes back to the ground plane at the bottom. This is not really good, but we have to live with it. There's leakage now, which was not there in the strip line. Okay. So that is why people came up with the idea of epsilon r effective and so on. They wanted to capture this reality that some field will be lost to air. You cannot recover it. That is why epsilon r effective was worked out with this approximate formula. Okay, so let me stop here today. Next time, we are going to look at analysis and design of microstrip line. 2 or 3 numerical problems. Formulas are slightly more involved, but conceptually, they are not that different from what we saw